Hi, my name is Vivian from Willow's Touch, and today I'm going to cover how to make Astragalus Bay Chai Latte. So the first thing you do is to make the blend. Chai means tea, and I've been really into chai for the past year and a half. I used to get chai all the time from Bombay Sandwich near where I work, and I decided, well, since I already know herbs, how come I don't make it myself? And so I was inspired to make this herbal blend. It contains astragalus, bay leaf, cardamom, star anise, cinnamon, ginger, black pepper, cloves. And so yeah, here it is. If you want to do a little close-up. Here is, I have the herbs prepared and I also have the water prepared. You want to do 1 tablespoon to 1.5 cups of water. And I have here just cold or room temperature water is fine. So I also have this tablespoon. I measured out 4 tablespoons and I have 6 cups of water in here. And that's just an approximate proportion. You can play around with it depending on how intense you want the flavor to be. So what I did was I took out the 4 ounces and I have this blend in here. I did pick out the cardamom seeds because while the other herbs are already pretty cut into small pieces, so there's really no need to grind it. But with the cardamom seeds, I want to make sure I break open the shell so that the seeds come out. So this is what I'm going to do now. So you're going to do a little close-up. So it's really handy if you have a mortar and pestle. It will make your life much more easier. Okay. You want to get the most out of these pods. They don't come cheap. So here they are. And I'm just going to add this right back to my chai blend. Add that together. And I keep my bay leaf separate so that I make sure I have 1 leaf added to each time I make the chai latte. And this blend is a very warming blend. It helps stimulate blood circulation, gets things moving. It's also really good for supporting your digestive fire. So if you have issues of digestion and sluggish digestion, this is a really great blend to have and to drink. It's also really good for protecting the immune system. A lot of these herbs are antiviral, antibacterial. So yeah, it's really supportive, and the astragalus is really good for the respiratory system and the immune system. It's something you can take every day, and it helps build wei qi, which is the qi that circulates really close to the surface of your body, and it's known as sort of the first barrier, first mechanism of your immune system. So especially nowadays, you really want to make sure you're protecting your respiratory system and supporting your immune system. I will add these herbs to the water. So put that in there. And as you see, everything they're either in chips or it's the cardamom pods that already broke open. So then now I have this, and I'm going to also add the bay leaf to it. Don't forget that. And you can really play around with your own blend. Use the herbs that you have at home. If you're missing one of them, that's not a big deal. You can always swap in and swap out the herbs using the herbs that you have on hand. And we're going to make what's called a decoction. And a decoction is basically how you make tea, but for herbs that have really hard surfaces. So think roots and seeds. Those things are harder to extract just from simply steeping it, which is why we make a decoction over the stove. So now I have this over here. I'm going to turn the stove on to high, and I'm going to keep it at high until it comes to a boil. And then once it comes to a boil, I will lower the heat down low here and then simmer for another 30 minutes. So if you want to have this aroma in your house, it's really nice too. It's kind of like a natural potpourri. It really fills the room with the smell of spices. or you can turn on the fan. The decoction is almost complete. I am going to turn off the stove because it's already been brought to a boil and then it's simmered on low for 30 minutes. So the next step is to steep the decoction with the tea bags. So this is black tea. You can either use tea bag or you can use loose black tea leaves if you have that as well. So over here I have 6 tea bags. It's really up to you how many tea bags you want to use, but I figured since I put roughly 6 cups and it's going to be a little under 6 cups because of the boiling of water, I just kind of want roughly 1 tea bag per cup. But you can adjust it according to the intensity you want.
Sure.
Now this is the last part of making the chai latte. I had already steeped the black tea bags in here for about 15 minutes and you see the color has definitely darkened because of the black tea. So what I'm going to do now is strain out some of that tea so I can get the latte started. And one of an herbalist's best friend is the strainer, because you will need to strain out many things as you work with herbs and make teas. So I'm going to put this strainer on top of the measuring cup. I'm going to strain out just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to put this to the side. So now I have that. And I'm also going to start foaming the milk. So I have a little trick that I learned from my brother, Jackie. And that is to use a French press to froth your milk. So this is helpful if you don't have an espresso machine, or if you don't have one of the steamer ones, the ones that vibrate and then start foaming. And I found those have mixed results, and actually using this French press has been really helpful and very useful for getting the type of foam that I want. So this is the original French press from Bodum, and it's a little French press here. You don't really need a big one for these purposes. And what I do here is I fill up just about halfway, a little under halfway. And what I'm going to do now, and about the milk. So it can be cow's milk, but if you don't want to use dairy, you want something plant-based, you can use that too, like soy milk or oat milk. Those are good options. But if you use those options, just make sure that you use one that is able to be warmed up and frothed into foam, because not all of them have the same result. So you may want to check out any plant-based milks that are barista style. So I'm going to put this in the microwave and heat it up for a minute. So while that is going on, I will pour the tea into a mason jar. What I love about mason jars is you can pretty much tell the proportions. So it's really up to you how much milk versus how much tea. What I'm going to do today is about 75% tea, and then the rest is milk. So it just depends on how strong you want the tea to be versus the milk. And the recipe that I made, this tea is pretty concentrated. So by itself, it's actually quite strong and perhaps bitter, and definitely spicy because it has all the spices with ginger, clove, star anise, and whatnot. So I found this to be a kind of a good proportion for me, but you can play around and see what you like and don't like. And another thing too is, because it's a very warming blend, it's something you want to be careful about when you're drinking in the summer, or especially if you have a lot of pitta, a lot of heat and fire in your body, you tend to run hot. You want to sort of be easy on these herbs because it's really for someone who tends to be cold, on the colder side. So there we go. I'm going to fill it up a little bit to about 3/4 of the way. Okay. And then I will leave the rest of the room for the foam. And something that I found in my many trials to make lattes is that you actually don't have to froth it that much. Actually, the more you do it, the larger the bubbles are and the thicker it is. You want it just so that it creates micro foam, like micro bubbles, and is pretty smooth and kind of glistens on the top. So you actually don't have to froth it so much to get the results you seek. So what I will do is 2 pumps that go from top to bottom. 1, 2. And that basically introduces, you see these large bubbles up top. But because I don't want too many of these large bubbles, after the first 2 pumps, I'm going to do about like 15 pumps from here all the way down to the bottom. And I'm going to try not to push this all the way up into the air so that it doesn't introduce even larger bubbles. So I'm going to keep it like from middle to bottom for the next few strokes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And as you see here, it's still quite liquidy. And now what I will do is pour it into this pitcher, which is then going to be used to pour it into the tea to make the latte. So I'm going to keep the lid on as I find it helps with straining out the large foam bubbles. And then now I'm going to pour it in here. And if you put your ears really close to it, you can actually hear the bubbles as they're being poured in. And whatever is left over in the French press, no big deal. Okay. All right. So this is the milk. And you see here, there's still some bubbles up top. And I want to get rid of those. So I would lightly tap it. Lightly tap and then rotate. And it's okay if not all the bubbles get popped up top. You just want to make it as good as you can, given the resources and the equipment you have. I got this years ago from IKEA, so it was probably like $2 or something, this thing. Pretty handy. All right, so now that I have the foam and I have the tea, I'm gonna start pouring. And when you first pour the milk into the tea, you wanna do it from a distance, so you're not super close by the surface. And you see it gets a little foamy up top, and then now I will do this. Oh wow, look at this. Just a little bit of latte art. I'm still working on that, but I guess this is probably not bad given my experience. So there we are. And you see this little circle over here that's a little whiter than the rest. That's just because I put this much more closer to the surface versus what I did in the very beginning when I had a large distance between this pitcher and the cup. So you usually see baristas, they do it from up top, and then once they get closer to the surface and they want to make the art, they get closer to the top of the liquid. So here we are. This is my Astragalus Bay Chai Latte, inspired by masala chai, especially the one from Bombay Sandwich in Chelsea. And if you want to make the iced version of it, it would just be using the same tea and then pouring chilled milk and ice over it.